So was the post-game press conference and interviews as well. But let's get into it, gentlemen, shall we? So, about last night, Odell Beckham Jr., he stole the show for all the wrong reasons in the Giants' 24-10 loss to the Vikings as he finished with a career-low 23 receiving yards and earning a taunting penalty. Here's Odell Beckham on the game.
Oh, there's never any explanation. It's just my fault. That's all I look at it as. It's my fault. There's whatever you want to call it. I just have to understand. If I sneeze the wrong way, it'll be a flag. It'll be a fine. If I tie my shoe the wrong way, it might be a fine or a flag. It is what it is. You have to understand that. As tough as it is to understand that for a 23-year-old who has been blessed with a lot, God has gifted me with an amazing amount of ability, amazing amount of everything, and just it seems like it's all working against you, but what are you going to do? You're going to back down or are you going to stand up? And I've never been one to back down. So I'm going to stand up. We're going to work to get better.
He's got to be aware. People are looking for him, and he's got to play smart, and he just can't afford to do anything. They're going to call him. He's kind of brought that upon himself, so he's got to realize that.
Eli with some strong words for Beckham. Max, should OBJ have been tossed?
Yes, he should have been. And I say that as a Giants fan. He should have been tossed. But before I even get to that, I want to address Odell Beckham directly. What is it? I want to address him directly. Odell, are you kidding me? You should have been thrown out on the Odell Beckham rule. I mean, I get it. You're frustrated because you're getting roughed up. The refs miss a call when you go out of bounds. But then your temper tantrum costs the team 15 yards. And on the very next play, you seek contact out of bounds when you know they warn you because of essentially the Odell Beckham rule. The next one and you're gone. You seek contact on the next play. You're playing the Vikings. Didn't play them last year because you missed that game because of what went down with Josh Norman. So they come up with this rule, and you're going to be the guy they had apply it to after they apply it to your teammate the week before a loss. You have got to be kidding me. Now, guys, I understand that, look, a boxer, for example, gets hit low. The ref's not calling anything. You know what you do if you're a fighter? If you're a prize fighter, you hit the other guy low because you got to take matters into your own hands. But if Odell is thinking that, if he's thinking that's what he had to do there, that's the opposite. Because it's not like if a guy's hitting you low and the ref warns you, you hit the guy low. Once the ref warns you, everyone's watching you. Odell is very lucky to not be ejected. Why should he been ejected? Well, obviously, because there was a rules infraction. It was intentional. He was trying to be slick. He wasn't that slick. But from a Giants fan point of view, I'm helping to raise 3 children. Got 3 daughters. And let me tell you what you do, as my wife has explained to me since she actually read the books, when they misbehave. There have to be immediate consequences, and it has to be correlated to their behavior. It has to be a result of their behavior. If they procrastinate getting in the bath, that means they don't get that thing that they wanted because there's no time. There's a consequence. From a Giants fan point of view, I know you're a Giants fan too, Molly, and so are you after your Steelers allegiance.
It's just the New York teams, but I'm diehard Steelers all day, every day.
Okay.
Yes.
But I think we all know what we're talking about here. As a Giants fan, Odell still, from his comments after the game, still doesn't get the message as though he's being persecuted.
It's victim mentality.
He needed to be tossed immediately so he, on an emotional level, felt those immediate consequences. Not the next game, not next week, not next month or year, no rules change. You did that after a warning. You are out of here. That would have hopefully driven home the lesson better than anything has so far, because he is being self-destructive, Stephen A. And I get it. His quarterback's not seeing when he's open. He's missing him when he's open and all that stuff. But these corners who are roughing him up are getting into his head. And the proof in the pudding is he's not making plays he always makes. The reason I think Odell is better than everyone else is because he doesn't have to be open to be open. He makes impossible catches routine. but he wasn't making those plays yesterday. Those impossible catches, he was just another receiver who couldn't quite make it. Good effort, but not quite. That's not Odell Beckham Jr. It's actually affecting his play. Never mind the penalties. Never mind the distraction and the contagion on the team.
There you go with that word contagion again.
This is bad.
Let me say this to you. I respectfully disagree. And the reason why I utter the word and I prefaced it by saying respectfully is because I understand where everybody's coming from. And looking at it in a vacuum, I wouldn't necessarily disagree, because I'm all about law and order. I'm all about, you got to sit up there and toe the line and make sure you got discipline, et cetera, et cetera. But there are many occasions where we see referees exercise, their arbitrary ways, and they decide when and when not to inflict punishment upon a player based on a player's actions, et cetera, et cetera. I think you and everybody who thinks like you is missing the boat here when it comes to Odell Beckham Jr. He is not the problem with the New York Giants. They've got a bevy of other issues. And I think that when I heard Eli Manning, who is class personified, who's always conducted himself like class, who's completing 66% of his passes, but has thrown just 4 touchdowns and with 4 interceptions this year, I think that speaks to the level of frustration. I think that a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. is about winning. I was driving in. I listened to my man Ryan Clark on Mike and Mike this morning, just talk about Odell Beckham Jr. from last year when he was going up against Josh Norman and the Carolina Panthers, and so much was made about him when you could hear him on the sideline screaming, "We're losing," and nobody cares. So the priority was about winning. The priority was about being successful. The priority is about not getting punked, which I think on a few occasions the New York Giants over the last couple of years have done. Now we go to Ben McAdoo. We go to an Eli Manning. We go to this guy Hart that was in his ear walking into the tunnel at halftime, basically getting on Odell Beckham Jr. to pretty much get himself under control. And I'm of the mindset that we've got a whole bunch of people talking about the importance of bringing things together. I want everybody here. You, Will Kane's going to be on in a little while. Coach Herm Edwards is going to come on in a little while. I want everybody to remember what my mentality is. I have always been a staunch adversary against coaches and other players leaning on the actions, even if it's the transgression of a particular player, and saying somehow, some way that has dictated our performance, that has dictated our behavior. When it does that, no excuse, no mercy, bring the hammer down. But when that is not the case, I think it's easy for everybody to gloss over his selfish and immature act and say that is the cause for our troubles. It's not the cause. It's a result. How he's acting basically is provoked by the kind of things that they're not doing. Guys need to do their jobs. Sure, you don't need Odell Beckham Jr. causing the quarterback trouble. Sure, you don't need him getting penalized and accruing penalties. We get all of that. That's obvious. But the flip side to it is that you have a guy who is a stud and a superstar, somebody you believe, Max, to be the best receiver in all of football. Xavier Rhodes comes out there, holds this dude to 3 receptions for 23 yards, puts him on lock and key, career low. Sure, it's getting to him. But you know what else probably was getting to him? How he was open, wasn't getting the football, how there was missed opportunities. Now, these are the kind of things that happen every single week.
That's a straw man, I think, because I don't think anyone's saying that the Giants are bad right now, or they lost a couple games. We knew they were going to lose to Minnesota. Right. They probably weren't going to go 3-0. 2-2 is more or less where you expect them at this point. Sure. I don't think they're in that bad shape, to tell you the truth. Sure. But no one's saying that I know, look, Odell is the problem on the Giants. The issue is he needs to be a huge part of the solution because he's their best player. He's not the quarterback, but he's the best player on the team.
Far be it for me for, just tickling my memory just a touch, Max, but I recall you when Odell Beckham Jr. was on the field against Washington, and you were going off about how Eli Manning needed to get him the ball because he was in their face, and he was like, I'm open. All I'm saying to you is...
This is different. No one was open yesterday. The Minnesota defense was excellent.
Well, no.
Receivers were not open.
Time out. You might say that based on the television camera angles. I may say the same thing. Odell Beckham Jr. clearly begs to differ. And if he begs to differ, I'm saying if you're Eli Manning or anybody else, you've got to look at it from the perspective. You got to get this stud to football. One of the things, you go to boxing, I'll lean on basketball in this equation. It's just like the big boy that's down low. Now, it's an unwritten understanding in the sport of basketball. If the big boy doesn't get fed, He's going to be hungry. He's going to have attitude.
Not gonna play
and
defense.
he's not going to be what you need him to be. So what you do is, even if it's at the beginning of the game, you go down court, you feed the beast. Why?
The problem
because you
is,
need him active.
The problem
you need that.
If you really want to get in the X's and O's, the Giants are missing Shane Vereen and Rashad Jennings.
Right.
And Perkins was good running the ball, but not so good in terms of protection. And as a result, because of that Minnesota defense, they gave Eli Manning almost no time to throw the ball,
That's fair.
even when
But
they didn't bring extra guys. So no one was open.
That absolves Eli.
But
hold it. It absolves Eli, but it doesn't absolve the coaching. It doesn't absolve the decision-making. It doesn't absolve some of the things that an Odell Beckham Jr. may believe they should be doing. Again, I'm not defending immature, all right, and selfish acts. What I am saying is that sometimes when you've got a stud and he's out there on that field and he is doing his job.
Right.
The problem is everybody wants to gloss over it and act like, okay, this is the storyline. We got to make sure we get this guy under control when there are ways to do it and they haven't done it.
No. If you're arguing that the argument is not Odell doesn't have a right to be frustrated. He has every right to be frustrated. You're absolutely right. The Giants don't do a good enough job of getting him the ball. And if he is commanding that much attention, they need to do a better job of scoring because that means other guys are open. The field should be loose somewhere else if there's always safety help and the best corner on Odell. That part is true. It's also true that Odell's right when he says he's not getting calls and guys are allowed to get away with things on him. That's also true, but that's not the issue. How you respond to it is the issue. And if you self-destruct, that is clearly the wrong response.
Well, that's if you self-destruct.
And he's self-destructing.
Wait a minute, but sometimes, why? Because he got a penalty? Because he got a penalty?
Because on the next play, he hit a guy out of it.
Do you think he's a little mentally weak?
I think no. I don't believe.
Do you think he's a little sensitive?
I think he's sensitive.
Okay.
I think there's a difference between being sensitive and mentally weak. To me, you're mentally weak if it cripples you and it inhibits your ability to go out there and do what you're capable of doing. I have seen Odell Beckham Jr. frustrated, visibly so, and go out there and play like a stud. It's 4 games in. Max Kellerman, it's 4 games in.
Oh, he's going to be big this year, of course.
Hold on. It's 4 games in. How in God's name are you the New York Giants and you okay with this brother not having a touchdown?
Well, let me ask you this.
How do you? You've got to figure that out. You've got to figure that out.
And it is a coaching issue, to your point, as well.
He has 25 touchdowns since he's going to catch plenty of touchdowns.
I'm talking about how he's feeling now, Matt.
Right. Okay, but that's fine. You can feel that way. How does the behavior come out? Do you channel it properly or do you behave immaturely? He behaved immaturely. There's no 2 ways about it.
I don't believe that. There's no doubt that he's been immature. But I think sometimes that immaturity can be a spark plug for the people around you because they don't want to deal with it and they're going to do what they're supposed to do. And that's what you're missing here.
Did it affect his play? I believe it absolutely did.
Okay.
You could see him not make plays.
Right.
Would they have been sensational plays? Yes, he always makes them.
Right.
He wasn't making them when the ball was coming his way after the incident.
I'm not defending immaturity and selfishness. What I'm saying is sometimes it takes you being rebellious and acting out for other people to sit up there and say, damn, I don't want to deal with this guy. Let me take care of him so we can move forward. Sometimes that's necessary.
I appreciate your optimism.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, and clearly the coaching also, there's a bigger issue going on there as well.
By the way, everybody's there but Tom Coughlin. He's the only guy that's gone. So he was the only problem. Evidently not.
Good point. We would like you to weigh in at home. Is Odell Beckham more trouble than he's worth? Go on the First Take Twitter page and vote. We'll share those results a little later in the show. But meanwhile, the Vikings, how impressive are they? Without their starting quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, and arguably the best running back in the league, and Adrian Peterson, they're now 4-0 after a schedule that has been no cakewalk. Wins against the Titans, Packers, Panthers, and Giants. Stephen A., how far can this team go with Sam Bradford at quarterback?
They go to playoffs. That's about it. I mean, I hope no one sits here and expects me to say Vikings and Super Bowl in the same sentence. Not as long as Sam Bradford's their quarterback. I'm not getting sold on that. Listen, Sam Bradford is talented. I know he's talented, but he's been prone to make mistakes, and I am not sold on him, and I'm not sold on their offense, particularly without the services of Adrian Peterson. We shall see. If it happens, it happens. If it happens, then I'll correct myself. But I believe this team is a playoff team. I believe, based on their defense and Zimmer's coaching, he deserves a lot of credit. He really, really does. I poo-pooed that in the past, but I can't deny what I'm seeing right now. The man can coach. The bottom line is this. I need to see more from Sam Bradford if I think they're going to beat Seattle. I need to see more from Sam Bradford if I think that they're going to beat. I would have said Arizona before this season, but not so much now. I'm not giving up on Carolina. I'm not giving up on Carolina. I damn sure believe Seattle is a team to be reckoned with. Those are your picks to go to the Super Bowl, okay? So I think you look at that. And I think you look at Green Bay because, again, they still got to come to Lambeau Field. They still have to play that bad man that is Aaron Rodgers. We shall see what will happen. I'm not going to pick anybody from the NFC East because I'm not sold on the NFC East, especially if Dallas is a possibility, because I damn sure ain't going to pick the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Minnesota Vikings on the road. But I will tell you, do I believe they can make the playoffs? Absolutely. I never doubted that. But a Super Bowl with Sam Bradford as your quarterback, I got to see that to believe it. I'm sorry.
You might be seeing it this year. They're absolute. Listen, the season is very long, and Bradford has an injury history. So, you know, whether they're the same team by the time the playoffs roll around remains to be seen. But if they are, if their quarterback is intact, it's a big if, but if their quarterback's intact, they can absolutely win a Super Bowl with Sam Bradford. As I said a couple weeks ago, once upon a time, Jim Plunkett couldn't win a Super Bowl with him, right? #1 overall pick. And then after, you know, flame out with two teams, really, he wins 2 Super Bowls, you know, with the Raiders. So that could happen to Bradford. Absolutely. There's precedent for
Why?
it.
Because there's precedent for it based on the 70s when you were just born? You mean then?
Let's talk
You mean
about,
back then, almost 50, almost over 40 years ago? Really?
Let's talk about these Minnesota Vikings and what Bradford brings. Remember when Peterson went down, I said, I can't believe I'm going to say it, but this could actually help Sam Bradford. And so
we both
far,
said that.
And so far, I've turned out to be right. No, you said I refuse to believe that if Peterson goes down,
Yeah,
Adrian Peterson goes down, that it's ever going to help a team if Adrian Peterson goes down.
You did say that. I got to give you credit for that because I thought you were crazy.
Wait a minute. I'm on the record saying that Bradford was an upgrade from Bridgewater.
Right.
No, but he said the team could be better without AP.
The team could be better without Adrian Peterson.
I still don't believe that.
What,
I still don't believe that.
And I likened it to, although he hasn't declined to this point, but I likened it to Kobe Bryant on the Lakers in his last couple of years. When a legend is on the team, you got to give him the ball. When that's what he does, you got to give him the ball. So they feel this obligation to give Peterson the ball. They're not a power running team. We can see that. They can't block for the run. McKinnon breaks loose yesterday because he's elusive, not like a power back. Yeah.
Especially with his touchdown where you're literally just 2-3 yards away and no one touched him.
Yeah, but
I mean, they weren't even prepared. They weren't even prepared.
That's the point.
Right.
The way they block for the run, don't get touched. Don't worry about a power running game if you're the Vikings. So they don't feel the obligation to run it through their aging running back, who was elite level last year, although not this year.
Okay.
That helps. Bradford doesn't turn the ball over. They have an identity. They know who they are. Their defense is elite. And let's look at recent precedent if you don't like Plunkett. How about last year's Broncos team? By advanced metrics, like we're talking about points expected, meaning how much better or worse are you than an average NFL team? The Broncos were the 7th worst offense in the NFL last year, minus 42 points expected. 42 points below an average NFL team, what you'd expect them to score.
But there you go.
The Broncos did.
There you go with the numbers, which I'm very shocked because you use numbers instead of the eye test, and you with the eye test, I mean, I don't understand why you don't defer to it more. Here's the thing, Max Kellerman.
The baby blues?
Here's the thing, the baby blues, baby. Here's the thing, Max Kellerman.
Nice eyes.
Listen, he
Thank
does.
you, Mom.
Listen, that needs to come from her. That's fine. That's fine. But for me, I'm not going there. The point that I'm trying to make to you, Max, is this. When we think about the Denver Broncos and you bring them up from last year, understand that with the Vikings, it was all about Adrian Peterson. Now you're learning new parts. You're learning about the Stephon Diggs. Obviously, Rudolph can play. And, of course, Sam Bradford, when healthy, can throw the deep ball. But even with the struggles of a Peyton Manning, the mystique of Peyton Manning certainly factored into the equation, particularly when he came back from his early season woes. In the meantime, the 7 games when Brock Osweiler was in there, you still had Demaryius Thomas on one side, Emmanuel Sanders on another. You still had C.J. Anderson in the backfield. And so what I'm saying to you is that you had weapons with a rep where you walk into a game and the mystique was there to be concerned about them. With the Vikings, you're sort of figuring it out because everything was about Adrian Peterson. Time would tell. We know their defense is legit, but as the season progresses and there is no Adrian Peterson and we get to lock in on Sam Bradford, even though I like Diggs, but lock in on a Stephon Diggs, but lock in on a Kyle Rudolph. We shall see what happens. I'm not thinking Super Bowl, definitely playoffs. I'm not thinking Super Bowl with the Vikings.
Super Bowl contenders. That defense is special. That's a special defense.
I agree with
yesterday, the Giants, who are not a bad team.
The defense is special.
The Giants really aren't a bad team, but they were outplayed in every facet of the game. Offense, defense, special teams. That was just a superior team.
You cannot go against the Vikings without a running game. You cannot go against the Vikings without a running game. You can't do that.
You can't really do it with a passing game either. There's not much you can do against them.
But again, when you talk about flexibility or diversity within an offense, that matters. The fact that I got to be concerned about you running the football, and I got to stack the line of
broke off a run.
I got to stack the line of scrimmage. I'm just saying you're not really worried. First of all, you're not really worried because you didn't know much about Perkins, and you're not really worried because you know they're not trying to give him the ball 30 times. So it's one of those situations where the vast majority of the times you're anticipating and expecting to drop back into coverage, which is going to be a problem. Because you've got Shepard, who's a rookie. You got Odell Beckham Jr., who's only in his day. He's a stud. But him with Eli Manning, who's interception prone, by the way.
The Vikings were giving Adrian Peterson an aging and declining star. And the reason I say declining is because when a guy is as great in his prime as Adrian Peterson was, on his way down, if it's gradual, he can still fool you into believing he's the best. But the last couple of years, Le'Veon Bell was better than him. And if Adrian Peterson was in his prime, no one's better than him. And then this year, he was averaging under 2 yards a carry.
Because you sound,
and they were giving him the ball 30 times a game.
But you still sound very disrespectful.
Well,
the fact is that saying that Le'Veon Bell, but Le'Veon Bell was better than him.
He was.
Well, it's Le'Veon Bell.
Right, but when Peterson was in his prime, who was better than him?
I understand that, but my point to you is that Peterson was the leading rusher in last year.
But he wasn't the best back in the game anymore. He was in decline.
The point is, no, he wasn't in decline. He was elite.
Peterson last year was as good as he was 6, 7 years ago, 5 years ago.
No, but that's not decline.
Yes, it is. That's the definition.
Not necessarily. It depends on how you're utilized. It depends on what Zimmer's trying to do.
They're giving him the ball on every play.
Well, listen, excuse me. Because you're giving him the ball on every single play. Back in the day, Sam Bradford or Teddy Bridgewater wasn't your quarterback. You didn't have to do back in the day what you had to do last year.
Have they been playing better or worse since Peterson went out?
I don't think we know yet. I really don't. Who do they go against, Max?
They've had a tough schedule.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
really?
they've had the Packers, the Giants, I think the Titans. I don't have the schedule in front of me.
The Titans. Did you say?
I'm sorry.
By the way,
that might not even be correct, but it's a very tough schedule, and I wish I had it in front of me.
I'm glad you brought up the Packers.
There's definitely 3 tough teams.
Because if you want to win a Super Bowl, if you want to get through the NFC in the playoffs, you better be able to beat the Packers because of that bad man, Aaron Rodgers, Stephen A. Smith.
Okay.
And guess who has the best shot to beat the Packers because of the way Mike Zimmer, has his defense playing against Aaron Rodgers? Actually, the Vikings.
Vikings schedule at Tennessee, Green Bay, at Carolina,
I missed Carolina. That's a tough schedule.
Well, again, we say it on paper it was a tough schedule, but we've all looked at the Carolina Panthers and say, what the hell is going on with them?
One of the things that's going on with them is they had to play the Vikings early in the season.
You can look at it that way. I can look at it as the fact that they let go of Josh Norman. They're relying on rookies in their secondary, as we learned the results of that from Julio Jones this past Sunday. 300 yards and 12 receptions. You want to talk to me about that defense today? You really
Can the Broncos win a Super Bowl? That's what I want to know. Can the Broncos win a Super Bowl this year?
Yeah.
With Simeon, they can win, but they can't win with Bradford because Simeon's clearly better than Bradford.
Because of the weapons Simeon has at his disposal, which is what I said earlier. If you were listening, you refuse to listen from time to time.
Denver offense, I said already, 7th worst in the league last year in added points expected.
But that was because of Peyton Manning, his inability to throw the football. He was injured. He wasn't himself. We all know this. That's why he retired now. I'm telling you, when you look at the Denver Broncos and the parts that they have around the quarterback position, it's more potent, at least at this moment in time, than what Minnesota has available to them. Can you dispute that?
No, they have better wideouts.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Max is saying a potential Super Bowl contender. You're saying a playoff team. But we can all agree the way this team has responded to adversity, losing their quarterback, getting Bradford without AP and playing that tough schedule.
Class of the NFC right now.
And that's a special defense.
Week 4, a quarter of the way.
We got to give them props, though. So far, you really got to give this team props.
I said they're going to playoffs. What do you want me to do? Bake cookies for them?
Okay. One of those days.
They're going to win a playoff game?
Coming up next, Shawne Merriman has a message for the Cowboys when Tony Romo gets back, and you won't believe what he has to say. The guys will react after the break.
Loyalty right now for Tony Romo in Dallas is sickening. It's beginning to be too much. If I'm a teammate, if I'm playing for Dallas, and Tony Romo is healthy, and they put him back on the field after what Dak has done for us, and I don't care how he got it done, what he's done for us, I'm pissed off. I'm sorry about that. They've taken it too far. I don't know what Tony Romo has done down there. I don't know what gives him this much credibility. And I'm a person that don't believe you should lose your starting position because you're injured. But this is not the first time that Tony's been injured. We know what he's doing when he's healthy. We know what he's done when he's healthy. If he comes back and he's a starter and he takes Dak's position, if I'm a teammate and I'm playing for Dallas, I'm pissed off.
That was former Chargers and Bills linebacker Shawne Merriman on Sports Nation yesterday saying it's lights out for Tony Romo in Dallas. Will Kane now with us. Hope you're doing well.
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Yes,
Looking very dapper today.
I must admit, you've dressed decently for a change. I like it.
First of all, that shirt was good.
Right.
It was nice.
Fashion
It was
is
stylish.
subjective.
And I hate this because it feels like I'm giving you power over my wardrobe. But this is in the rotation.
But you are.
You know,
look
I got to
very
ask you both something. Do you plan on offering your handkerchief to a lady at some point later today? What is the
You
handkerchief?
might.
The pocket square?
Is a pocket square is even worse?
Let me tell you something right now. You really, really need to get up on your game with them. You need to add pocket squares.
That is an unnecessary embellishment.
Can I tell you something right now?
Like a vest, Max.
Can I tell you
That's
something right now?
a vest is for the cooler weather.
Well, listen.
You like the simple
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
If you added a nice, silky, like black or white pocket square,
Trying
that
too
would
hard.
bring that side. Well, listen, you're supposed to try hard with your wardrobe.
You try just hard enough, but no harder.
Okay.
Is that why? Is that also the close-shaved beard?
Precisely.
Look, we're both violators, but let's not pretend this is warming our faces.
Precisely.
It's decorative.
Well, that is decorative. That is true. But some of us have weak chins. Anyway, we digress.
Oh, you all look very nice. Fashion is subjective, and I'm glad you have range in your wardrobe, Will.
Thank you,
Good to
Molly.
see you.
Thank you.
Do you agree with Shawne Merriman?
Well, I mean, how do you agree or disagree? I mean, I tried to diagram Shawne Merriman's paragraph, and I'm sure Sean's a great guy. I never met him. I'm sure he's a great guy. But he uttered something like 4 or 5 sentences in this paragraph, and they simply don't add up. They don't work together. Number one, I would be pissed if the Cowboys replaced Dak Prescott with Tony Romo. Number two, I don't believe guys should lose their job to injury. Those things are in conflict with each other. Number three, we know what Tony Romo's done on the field. Well, if you know what Tony Romo's done on the field, you wouldn't be quibbling with the fact he's replacing Dak Prescott in the starting lineup. Tony Romo is, statistically, truthfully, one of the best fourth-quarter quarterbacks of the past decade. He has the most fourth-quarter comebacks. He has the most game-winning drives, comeback victories since 2006 over names like Tom Brady, that bad man Aaron Rodgers. He has the stats, the truth to back it up. We know what he's done on the field. Maybe I'll cut Sean some slack. Maybe he hasn't watched. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he's only one of these guys that watches a SportsCenter highlight at the end of a Sunday and sees Tony Romo throw a pick once every, I don't know, season. Once a season, and Tony Romo does that. But just
So
to be
you
clear.
know more than the NFL player that was Shawne Merriman, is what you're trying to say.
Who, by the way, is
Lights
about
out.
6'5", 270 pounds, and I used to
Sean,
see him in my
lights out,
Krav
Merriman.
Maga gym in L.A.
Go ahead, Will.
Two things.
Tread lightly.
The measure of a man in this arena isn't the size of his body, but the size of his man. And I won't be by the size of his mind.
That too. Keep going.
Give it a second.
That's
Let it
not
roll.
the worst Freudian slip to make, actually.
They're even
I
in
have
my-
nothing to do with this
They're even in my ear
conversation.
going,
Go
wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Not the size of his body, but the size of his mind. And I won't back down from anyone on
Let
that.
you tell it.
Number two, just because you played doesn't mean you can analyze and talk it. And
Agreed.
Shawne
That's
Merriman
true.
can't.
That's right. That's true.
I'm not saying Shawne Merriman is flawed. I'm just saying this particular analysis
No, it's not.
is off.
No, it's not.
Dak Prescott does not get replaced by Tony Romo unless Dak Prescott is an absolute world beater, an unimaginable world beater, in the next 6 weeks.
We agree about that. Or even if it's not as a result of his play necessarily, but that they just keep winning. Because that's the history of the NFL. I don't care who you are. You can lose your job to injury if the team happens to be winning. The idea is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if Dak is balling out or they only have one loss by the time Romo gets back, Romo ain't getting the job right back. Barring that, I'm on the same page with you. Romo's underrated. He's an excellent quarterback who has become a punchline, and it's really not his fault. But I understand what Shawne Merriman's saying perfectly. He's saying, Will, and I'm surprised at you, they're unable to see this in the reading comprehension of for crying out loud, if I can't rely on you to do that, who at ESPN can I rely on?
We'll see.
Look, he's saying that if you, I'll put it in terms you can understand, if you had a Venn diagram, draw a Venn diagram of Tony Romo fans and Dallas Cowboy fans, while there would be an intersection, there would be a shaded area where they are one and the same, there's also Tony Romo fans who have gotten to have a greater allegiance to the quarterback than the team. On a lower level, the way Kobe Bryant fans were not, sometimes put their Kobe Bryant fandom ahead of their Lakers fandom. Now, in terms of him being hurt, he said you can't lose your job to injury. And we all know how great Tony Romo is, essentially. But his point is, Tony Romo is chronically injured. This is an ongoing problem.
Yeah, you skipped that line.
He has not been, I don't know if he used the word chronically, but that's his point. He continually is injured. So the issue is, even if he gets back on the field, for how long? You can't rely on him. Meantime, you have a young, healthy quarterback who needs the reps, who you're winning with, and who's balling. If you were on the Dallas Cowboys, you'd say, why go back to the problem? Why not just continue what we're doing?
I want to let this happen. This is going to happen. I'm going to let this happen. But first, just a quick rebuttal on this reading comprehension test that I passed with flying colors.
Yes.
You may be explaining Shawne Merriman's "I don't like guys losing their job" to injury. You may be giving a little bit more breadth to that comment, but you haven't explained Shawne Merriman saying, we see what Tony Romo's done on the field. You haven't explained what you submitted to when you started, that he's a great statistical quarterback that's consistently underrated. You haven't explained Shawne Merriman failing that part of his analysis.
Yeah. He's saying that's one of the reasons there's so many Romo fans who at times put his interests ahead of the team's interests. And on the other hand, he's acknowledging the fact that he's awesome while also saying his inconsistency and lack of availability is going to be an issue going forward because it's been an issue in the past and in the recent past. That's what he's saying.
Stephen A.
This bores me. I got that line from
college debate team.
I got that line from Dave Chappelle imitating Prince. Remember that? Remember that? Before he challenged Eddie Murphy and the crew to a game of basketball. You know, Will Kane, I just want to make sure I'm clear about this. From Texas, right?
That's a fact.
Right. You a Cowboy fan, right?
That's right.
You believe in winning, don't you?
Here we go.
Don't you? Because you see, all the stuff that y'all just been bloviating about for the last 5 to 10 minutes is speaking about a 78-49 regular season record. 65% of his passes completed, quarterback rating of 97. Relatively impressive numbers during the regular season. I'm sorry, because, you know, Mrs. Mollywood, you know, football, you know, our football matriarch. Man, are you aware of any Super Bowl championships that's won during the regular season? I'm not sure. I just need clarification.
No,
that doesn't happen, right? Back to you. This is the issue. See, this is why your opinion about Tony Romo is pathetic, and you should be ashamed of yourself to show up here on this show talking about Tony Romo and getting on Shawne Merriman. Tony Romo's record is 2-4. Do you know what his completion percentage dips to in the postseason? That would happen to be 61.6%. I mean, it dips by about 5%. Come playoff time. So in other words, what we've discovered about Tony Romo is that he's beautiful when the pressure's minimal. He's beautiful when the lights ain't too bright, when it's not illuminating too much. And why do we know this? Because it has been 20-plus years since the Dallas Cowboys have won anything. So it has gotten so bad that I know you know this, Will Kane, because obviously, you know, you make sure to record history. I'm sure you have this recording somewhere. Jerry Jones, you know, that billionaire owner of yours, you know, got the Cowboys worth about $4.2 billion, built the $1 billion playpen, Jerry World.
That part's impressive.
All of that, that's very impressive. I do recall Jerry Jones stating, I'm not getting any younger. Our time is running out.
Ticking.
This is what he said.
Just like a woman's
This is what he said.
biological clock.
So if all of those things matter, not only do I got you dead to rights in terms of you being completely wrong about Tony Romo, I dare say, Will Kane, you are very insensitive to Jerry Jones because you're not thinking about him. You're not thinking about his well-being. This man is running out of time.
Jerry Jones doesn't care about winning. That's the problem.
Listen, I believe you, but my point
about business.
My point
he cares about his own vanity.
I do believe him to some degree.
Yeah.
To some degree, I do believe that's true. It's not that he doesn't care about winning.
But it just contradicted everything you just said.
Let me finish. I don't
believe that.
I believe that he prioritizes things other than winning.
That's right.
Not that he doesn't care, because I think he cares, but he doesn't.
He cares about other things more than winning.
But you don't care about Jerry Jones. You don't care about Jerry Jones.
Okay, I don't care about Jerry Jones. I am a good team player. I'm here. I'm your friends. I'm here to help you. First of all, first quick lesson. I know you're both from New York, grew up in the city, and you're city boys.
What part of Texas did you grow up in?
Sherman, Texas.
It ain't even Dallas, is it? Or not even Arlington. No. Where's that at? Where's that at?
Let me be clear. There's pride in rural Texas. There's pride in small town Texas.
Where's it at
I'm not a big city boy like you guys, but I'm here because of that.
How far is that
to
from
explain
Dallas?
something to you, okay?
How far is that from Dallas?
Don't use the country rube routine. Let's get to the point.
Here's the point. This Jerry Jones doesn't care about winning. That's crazy. First of all, he's not in it to make money. He got into this rich. He got into this already rich, as all owners do these days. Nobody inherits teams anymore. They come to it with full pockets and do it to boost egos through winning.
So
now, here's
he
what
just
you guys
markets Dallas out of the kindness of his heart, huh?
Here's where you guys get
nothing
confused.
about money, huh?
There's this mentality, and it's a little peculiar in Texas, maybe a little heightened, but it exists in New York as well. And there's a mentality of how you want to win. Jerry is a home run hitter. He's a swinger. He wants to go all the way. He wants the dramatic moment. He's not a process guy. Admittedly, he's not Bill Belichick. Okay? He's not Jason Garrett, for that matter. He's not Robert
What is
Kraft.
Jason Garrett? What is Jason Garrett?
Well, Jason Garrett talks a good game about the process. Jerry will always
not Rooney or
go
Mara
for the home run.
or any of the really good owners.
But that doesn't make him. That doesn't mean he doesn't care about winning, Max.
I should have
He's an
rephrased.
inherent deal maker. He wants to hit a big oil deal. He doesn't want to grind out small profits like Warren Buffett over multiple decades. He wants to hit it now.
And I'm not excusing
he goes
him.
into
debt like certain
I'm not
presidential
excusing
candidates.
him. I'm explaining him to you men who grew up in New York and just don't understand. That's a different way of wanting to win. It doesn't mean you don't want to win.
It's a different way of wanting to win. So how do you explain the fact that he hasn't done it in over 20 years?
Because you keep striking out. Home run hitters strike out.
Well, how many times are you allowed to strike out before somebody renders you ineffective?
They bust you down to the farm.
And it's time to move on.
Perfectly legitimate rebuttal. Now I want to tell you one thing, and this is going to be, I'm here to help you. I'm going to tell you why.
I'm waiting for the help. I'm waiting for the assistance.
This is why.
I've been around you long enough. I haven't gotten any assistance yet.
This is why I keep beating you in debates. And if you listen
never
to this,
happened.
This is
go
why
ahead.
it keeps happening, okay?
You really drug test, piss test, whatever the case may be, something you need.
The college debate thing, maybe it comes in handy because here's the question. Should Tony Romo replace Dak Prescott? The question was not, despite your soliloquy, is Tony Romo better than Aaron Rodgers? It was not, is Tony Romo better than Tom Brady? The question was not, will Tony Romo win a Super Bowl or be a world beater in the playoffs? The question was, is Tony Romo good enough and should he be replacing Dak Prescott? My argument went to winning that argument.
No. Because it did not.
That's why I beat you. Because you went off over here and made a fancy argument about something else.
Do I get to rebuttal? Do I get to retort?
Well, it depends if it's on subject or not.
Well, it's always on subject. You understand? If you listen, you know. First of all, the question is accurate. I answered the question because what I pointed to.
So you're saying Dak should stay in?
I'm saying to you, yes. If the Dallas Cowboys, I have said from day one, if the Dallas Cowboys are winning, why bother this man?
You're saying you're saying that since Tony Romo can't win a Super Bowl, you might as well start with Dak Prescott. You're saying since Romo is better than most give him credit for it, and then Dak, he should start. But what you haven't addressed is the propensity for injury. Tony Romo can't stay on the field. And I think the point Shawne Merriman was making that you haven't answered is why go back to a guy who can't seem to stay on the field when you have a young, healthy quarterback who needs the experience and is already good?
Well, Max, it's a no-lose proposition. I take the better quarterback as long as he's healthy, and when he's not, then I put Dak back in.
Time out.
Why is that not a perfect scenario?
Wait a minute.
I happen to agree with that.
How do you know he's better if Dak Prescott continues to play the way that he's playing and the team is flowing? How do you know that?
Gosh, I respect you so much.
How do you know that?
That I listened to you. And was I here on Friday? I was here on Friday, right? And wasn't the argument you forwarded then that I don't know anything about Dak Prescott, that he started 4 games, at that time 3 games?
Yes.
That it was premature to anoint Dak Prescott?
Yes.
And now you're ready to replace him?
No, what I'm saying to you, no, Will, because we addressed the question. This is a different question. What I'm saying to you is that if Dak Prescott is flowing, you stay with him. My position has been consistent about that all day, every day, from the time that he arrived, because I have made the argument that if you are Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys and you're winning football games, why interrupt that for a dude that can't be relied upon? Not to mention a dude that has never won anything.
Yeah, your argument is that Tony Romo isn't good under pressure, but I don't think the stats actually back that up. He gets slightly worse when he plays better teams. That's like Tom Brady, too.
I said postseason. I'm not thinking about the regular season.
But you play better teams in the postseason.
I'm not. No.
So stats will fall off a little bit.
No, because what happens is that Will comes with an argument, then a different question comes up, and we're addressing that, and then you try to lump it all in. Don't get slick. The fact of the matter is...
I think it's the opposite.
No, absolutely not. Because the fact of the matter is, if you are Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, what has Tony Romo done for you in the postseason? Tell me one time my argument has changed. What?
They were one call away, which I think they got the call right, but it was that close from going to the NFC Championship game.
Here,
you know, not that long ago.
Look. Here, wipe your brow.
All right. So
oh,
Steven,
there it is! There it is! I take it back.
I would never do that with my pocket square. That's cheap. That's cheap. Why don't you go ahead and blow your nose with it? Because
the arguments are rich, though, Stephen A. The arguments are rich.
I think you think it is, and that's what I love about it.
So Stephen A's team, Rain, Dakota, Prescott, you guys are saying Tony Romo, he gets injured.
No-brainer.
Bring Dak back.
There's never any explanation. It's just my fault. That's all I look at it as. It's my fault. There's whatever you want to call it. I just have to understand. If I sneeze the wrong way, it'll be a flag. It'll be a fine. If I tie my shoe the wrong way, it might be a fine or a flag. It is what it is. You have to understand that. As tough as it is to understand that for a 23-year-old who has been blessed with a lot, God has gifted me with an amazing amount of ability, amazing amount of everything, and just it seems like it's all working against you, but what are you going to do? Are you going to back down, or are you going to stand up? And I've never been one to back down. So I'm going to stand up. We're going to work to get better.
He's got to be aware. You know, people are looking for him, and he's got to play smart, and he just can't afford to do anything. You know, they're going to call him. He's kind of brought that upon himself, so he's got to realize that.
The frustrated 23-year-old's going to stand up. Eli says he brought it upon himself. Will, I want to get your thoughts here on this subject. What was your takeaway on Beckham last night?
That largely Beckham is being childish. I listened to you two gentlemen debate this earlier, and I hate to say this because it's a bad habit to get into, but I think I agreed almost entirely with Max on it. We used words like immature, unable to control his emotions. That all adds up to the obvious conclusion that he's being childish. And beyond that, as you heard in that video right there, he's still looking for excuses. He's still looking to shift blame to other places, as though it's the referee's fault, or as Stephen A. offers, the play caller's fault, or the coaching staff's fault, or the camera's fault that follow you around. When you say things like, if I tie my shoe the wrong way, I get a flag. If I sneeze the wrong way, I get a flag. He's painting himself as this persecuted person. He's not persecuted. He's brought all of these problems onto himself. And Stephen A., I heard you say, you know, you want to see accountability, but you referenced it when it comes to the coaching staff. You don't want to see Eli or Ben McAdoo shifting the problems of the team on to Odell. But we have to ask that same accountability from Odell. He has to own his own problems, and these are clearly his problems. One other thing you said earlier in the show is you said it's not mental weakness unless it cripples your game. Well, I'm not going to say that Odell is mentally weak, but he is showing mental weakness. He is showing that quality. When your game, after that moment with Xavier Rhodes, which, by the way, I agree, Max, he should have been tossed for like 3 different reasons. He took his helmet off on the field. He bumped an official. All of this after his initial warning. After that moment, 3 for 23, 3 catches for 23 yards, 0 catches in the second half. That is crippling your game. That is reducing yourself to someone that is imminently controllable. And Xavier Rhodes did it. He owned him last night, not just physically, not just on the football field, mentally. He owned Odell Beckham. He dictated Odell Beckham's behavior and therefore dictated his play. That is not someone in control. That is not someone tough. That is someone childish.
And the proof in the pudding, by the way, is that he wasn't making the spectacular play in the second half. The ball did come his way a couple times. Very tough catches. You can't expect normal people, even elite receivers to make those kind of catches. But Odell makes those kind of catches routinely, and he was almost just about, but not making the catch. What changed? What changed was, I agree, you can get under his skin. Norman did it last year.
First of all, I'm serious when I say this. I'm not giving anybody a pass for selfishness and immaturity. But I also want to make sure that I ask you to make sure you interpret my thoughts accurately.
All right.
Here's why. I am not giving Odell Beckham Jr. a pass. What I'm saying is, on far too many occasions in my 24 years as a journalist covering sports, I have seen on too many occasions where the person getting the finger pointed at them is where everybody is focusing their ire and their attention on, as opposed to what the bigger problem is and what led to it. I think of a guy like Eli Manning. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion. That's what we say. What we don't point out is that the New York Giants have missed the playoffs 6 times in the last 7 years. The lone season that they made the postseason was when they won the Super Bowl. And because of that, we give Eli Manning a pass, but Tom Coughlin didn't get a pass. He's fired. They kept the offensive coordinator, elevated him to the head coach, kept the defensive coordinator, kept the GM. The GM who, by the way, sat at the locker. And I like Jerry Reese. He sat at the locker talking to Odell Beckham Jr. in the aftermath of all of this. As a boss, if a boss out there said to me, I'd bench Odell Beckham Jr., I don't blame him on its face, because he's saying, I don't need that kind of distraction. I'm making the argument that the Giants have been a distraction to themselves for at least 6 of the last 7 years. There's been one problem after another after another. Their ownership's response was, we're going to get rid of Tom Coughlin. Not his staff, not change the culture, not do anything. Literally, he's the only one that's gone. And so when I look at it from that perspective, and then I see an Odell Beckham Jr. acting up the way, on his face, I'm looking at him like, come on, dog, get your head together. Come on now. You can't do this. Y'all are right about that. I'm not refuting that. What I'm saying is it's a mistake to stop there and just look at him, as opposed to looking at why some things happen.
Well,
Listen,
you could also point the finger at Jerry Reese, who hasn't, other than drafting Odell,
sure.
if you,
I just
hasn't
said
had the best draft.
You're right.
You know why Odell attracts the attention he does? Not just the antics, because he's so special. Odell is the most special player on the team and arguably in the league.
I'm saying forget all of that for 1 second.
That's why people pay attention to him.
And I'm asking you to forget that for 1 second so I can make this point to both of you. Damn, y'all. In your chosen profession, you talented. In your chosen profession, you talented. We haven't found ourselves in situations where the frustration just boils because you are going about the business.
You don't talk to reporters, though,
I don't.
You don't.
I would never do that.
Yeah.
I don't talk about the blogosphere. None of them.
You don't.
I don't do any of that. But I must tell you, there are times when, look, I'm a difficult dude to deal with. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Unapologetically so. And very happy to tell you that, because the work that I put in to be as successful as I am and as hard as I work, when the people around me, not y'all, of course, but not anybody in this time, I'm not talking about the show, but I'm just saying in general throughout life, you find yourself in situations where you're surrounded with ineptitude and questionable interest.
Okay,
and
listen,
focus,
but
and that will make you
deal
lose.
with it
He's
very
23.
differently,
He's 23, Will.
You're right. But there are two separate issues here.
Okay.
There are Giants problems, and there are Odell Beckham problems.
Yeah.
But he's 23.
And they're not one and the same. Odell Beckham has to deal with his problems. And when you point out Giants problems, it sounds like what you're doing is making excuses for him. And let me tell you something. He's ready to hear excuses. He's talking about his shoelaces here. What
Yeah, that was a problem. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. You're right about that.
There's another element here, which is when you are talented in a way that no one else is, you can use that talent. You're not always going to be surrounded by similar pieces or parts. Maybe Roethlisberger makes better use of Antonio Brown than Eli does of Odell Beckham. Maybe Eli or Matt Ryan makes better use of Julio Jones. Maybe Odell sees that and gets frustrated. You can allow your talent to isolate you from everyone else. Jordan sometimes did that early in his career, and we're going to a different sport. Or you can use your talent to uplift those around you, as LeBron James does.
I got a question for both of y'all. This is my last.
And Odell needs to be more LeBron right now.
I'm coming to you. I'll ask the question for both of y'all. I got nothing to say after this question. Do you look at a situation where a guy is young and find yourself asking this one question? What the hell is y'all job? He's 23. He's a stud. We understand he's a bit problematic. But if you can't find a way to overcome that, why do I need you? Meaning the coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback, etc.
I got an answer for your question.
Please.
I don't think Odell Beckham's frustrations, at least last night, had to do with play calling. I don't think it had to do with how many times he was getting the ball. I think it had to do with Xavier Rhodes. I think his frustration was fairly pointed at the cornerback across from him who was owning him, which proved someone else can control his behavior. There is a mentality that many people have that if you get punched, you must punch back.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're a punk and you're not tough yourself. That's not true. Honestly, you see it in politics. Donald Trump will punch back at anything that comes and punches at him. What happens is you become controlled.
You can be baited in a tweet.
That's right. You're baited. You're not even in control of yourself. How are you going to control your game if all I have to do is insult you? If all I have to do is get in your head, and the next thing you know, you're gone. See, Odell Beckham's frustrations and his problems aren't the Giants. They're not Ben McAdoo. They're not Eli.
It's also...
They're his opponents in him.
It's also, if you have a persecution complex, in other words, Odell has been able to impose his will on the game of football. Very difficult to do in the NFL. But he's so much better than everyone. When he's not open, he's still open. He can do the impossible. So he's talented differently than everyone else. And when it's not going his way, he starts to look for excuses. Rhodes is getting away with stuff. Eli's missing me. They're not calling my number.
Fair?
Yep.
Don't disagree with either of your points. What I would say is, though, in the sport of football, what is the reason they call wide receivers prima donnas for? They want the ball. They usually believe they're open. You sprinting and racing and running routes and getting hit and all of this other stuff. And there are missed opportunities. Odell Beckham Jr.'s behavior is not foreign from the wide receiver position. And at age 23, with his talent, his proven track record, he's being selfish, he's being immature. Got it. No disagreement.
No, that's fair.
But there's a level of understanding that we need to give this guy
this is what I mean.
in this situation.
This is what I mean by...
That's all I'm saying.
This is what I mean by he gets attention because he's so special. Because you look at Odell, and the real question is, Odell, do you want to be Jerry Rice or Chad Ochocinco?
Do you know who?
By the way, great wideout, but it's not Jerry Rice.
Do you know who he's starting to remind me of? Not Ochocinco, DeMarcus Cousins. Starting to look a lot like DeMarcus Cousins.
Ooh. I'll think about that.
One other thing, too. Your point about the Odell Beckham issues
about
and the Giants issues being separate issues, very strong. One last thing I just have to say to what you're saying. You're a special talent, right? You're one of the best on TV. You get frustrated, correct? But you don't go and talk about it with reporters post-game and share all your feelings. That's what I'm saying. But that's something that can be controlled, and that brings it back on him as well.
But I'm 48. Ask me what I was when I was 23.
Yeah, but here's the problem with being a player. You ain't going to be a player when you're 48. You got to get it right when you're 23.
Yep.
I don't know about 23. You're right. We're not at 23.
That was a great conversation. We want to know what you guys think at home, though. Is Odell Beckham more trouble than he's worth? Go on our First Take Twitter page and vote. We will reveal those results a little later.
I actually have to concede that Will actually made a good point for the first time.
Oh, please.
I got to give it to him.
First time.
Got to give it to him.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. The Raiders off to a 3-1 start. Someone at the desk thinks they are contenders. Find out who that is after the break.
Low snap. Derek looking. Derek gonna lob over the end zone for Crabtree. Did he get both feet down? Touchdown! Raiders! Michael Crabtree did it again. His third touchdown of the game.
The Raiders are turning heads this season with a 3-1 record. Their wins weren't easy either. All of them on the road in Eastern and Central time zones against the Saints, Titans, and Ravens. The Falcons, their sole loss. The Raiders sit just one game behind the Broncos in the AFC West. Stephen A., are you buying the Raiders as contenders?
Yes, I am. Contenders in terms of not Super Bowl contenders, but I do believe that they will make the playoffs. I think this is the first time, and I think they've missed the playoffs for like 14 straight years. In the past, particularly when they let go of Hugh Jackson, I was really on the GM McKenzie. Not anymore. I think that when you look at what they've built in Oakland, it's incredibly impressive. Now, they got to get ready to get on their knees and just, and break the bank to give to, Khalil Mack, because he is the Mack daddy. He is the man. No question about it. But so is Derek Carr. 9 touchdowns, just 1 interception, complete 68% of his passes, already thrown for over 1,000 yards in the first 4 games of this season. Latavius Murray, they got a 3-headed running attack. Latavius Murray, this kid, DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richards, both averaging better than 4 yards a carry. Very impressive. I thought it was about Amari Cooper. I really, really did, because I love me some Amari Cooper, okay? The boy was big time coming out of Alabama. He has lived up to the hype and then some. But my Lord, Michael Crabtree, talk about a rebirth. I mean, this brother shows up. Crabtree is handling his business, and it seems ideal that he's your secondary option at the receiver spot. Experienced, and knows what he's doing, knows how to play the game. He wasn't a number 1 in San Francisco, which Richard Sherman showed us, but at the same time, he's a quality number 2 guy with Amari Cooper there with him. I like what I'm seeing offensively. Defensively, they got to defend the pass better. There's no question about it, because they're ranked dead last. They got to do a better job. But I'm a fan of Jack Del Rio and the job that he has done. I'm a fan of their coaching staff. That mystique of Raider Nation, to me, is coming back. They got to do something better with Khalil, because, again, you got to get Khalil Mack some help. But then I look at the schedule, Max. Let's look at this. They're 3-1 now, 3 consecutive road wins, all right, to open the season. Hasn't been done in a long time by them. But then you got Kansas City, Jacksonville, Tampa. Of course, you got Denver at home. You got Houston at home on a Monday night. You got a struggling Carolina Panther team, Buffalo. I mean, don't get me wrong, their schedule is quality, but it's not a death knell.
Right.
They can win some of these games. And with the way the Jets and Buffalo have looked in the AFC East, with the way the AFC, you got competition in the AFC North. I only think the winner of the South will come out. I think they got a shot to compete with one of the teams in the North for that second wild card spot. I think this is the year the Raiders make the playoffs.
They do have a shot to make the playoffs. In that sense, they're contenders. But when I hear are they contenders, I think are they Super Bowl contenders? And I think everyone is a year early on that. Everyone sees it coming, so everyone wanted to be the first one to say, oh, watch the Raiders.
Right.
The Raiders are not Super Bowl contenders this year because they don't play defense. Now, Khalil Mack, let's start. First of all, everyone knows Carr's excellent. Amari Cooper's excellent. No question about it. But this NFL, it's almost like baseball during the PED era. Not that they're totally out of the game, but when it was running rampant. There was so much offense, these pitchers had to figure out a way to get these monsters out, right? Then you take the PEDs out, the pitchers have gotten better, and now, until very recently, offense was way down. Yeah. The response to the rules changes in the NFL and the aerial attacks have been sophisticated defenses that, in fact, nowadays when you look, who do I really like to win the Super Bowl? I know you don't like Minnesota, but I think they're one of the leading candidates now. Certainly the Broncos, as they did last year. Carolina had a great defense. Seattle has a great defense. The teams you really like are the really good defensive ones. As a response to these high-flying offenses, the Raiders have the offense down, but the defense, I talked about expected points allowed. That compares you to league average.
Sure.
They're 6th worst defensively by expected points allowed. And you brought up Khalil Mack, who I think Aaron Donald's probably the best defender right now in the NFL, at least, up front. Khalil Mack
He's dual
right. Yeah, he is.
Linebacker, defensive end.
I like it much
Pro
better.
Bowl in 2 positions.
I like it much better when he's basically a linebacker than when he's now. It looks to me like he's basically.
I like him moving around. I like him moving around.
Okay, let's look.
Right.
This year.
He's only
1
got a
sack so far. Last year, 15, which means just about a sack a game.
Okay, but they're keying more on him now.
Well, also, but he's got his hand in the dirt at defensive end. It's different. He's not as his skills are not as on display. He's not being deployed as well, I think, from this position. 17 disrupted dropbacks last year, 1 so far this year. So the good news for the Raiders is, as they figure out how exactly they want to deploy Khalil Mack, the defense can get better. But I don't think better enough. Like last year, they were middle-of-the-pack defense.
Right.
This year, they're on the bottom.
Right.
I think they're still a draft away and from bringing in enough defensive players.
That's fair, because I'm about the players. I'm not talking Super Bowl, not with New England, Denver, and Pittsburgh in the AFC. I'm not saying that. But let's also point this out. Don't just bring up Khalil Mack. In 4 games, the Oakland Raiders have 5 sacks. That's nothing. I mean, that's nothing, all right? Their leading sacker is Bruce Irvin. He's got 2. But you acquired him in the offseason. What I'm saying to you is this. Let's look at what they're doing offensively, and let's look at how they're going to try to compensate. Derek Carr's only been sacked twice this year. Twice in 4 games. That's it. Okay, he's got 9 touchdowns, just 1 interception. You're protecting him. The running backs running the football effectively with Latavius Murray. Okay, he's averaging 4.3 yards a carry. DeAndre Washington is averaging 6.4 yards a carry. You've got Jalen Richards averaging 8.5 yards a carry. You've got blockers. They're protecting the quarterback. Plus, they're opening holes to run the football effectively. That means you can move the chains because you got to worry about Derek Carr, who's got a strong enough arm to throw outside the numbers. You got to worry about this offense, and I think that compensates for some of it, which is why I got them being a playoff team.
My takeaway from the Raiders is deploy Khalil Mack correctly. That dude is different. Okay. That is a special talent.
No question.
For me personally, I just hate to deal with it again. He's just too big of a piece to our team, and have to deal with another training camp. So, like I said, hopefully things get resolved fast, because we know how big and important he is to our team.
The Kings over the nonsense. That was LeBron James on the Cavs contract situation with J.R. Smith, who did not pick up his $5.3 million player option for the 2016-17 season in July, becoming an unrestricted free agent. Now, multiple sources have told ESPN that the Cavs have offered a 3-year escalating contract to Smith with a partial guarantee in the 4th year, bringing the total guaranteed money north of $42 million. Stephen A., what are the Cavs doing here?
We don't know. And the reason that we don't know is because JR's side has one story, the Cavaliers have another.
Okay.
The Cavaliers, according to sources within the organization, swear that they've not only given J.R. Smith the largest offer out there, they've given him the only offer out there. And obviously they are about the business of saying, hey, go ahead, test your market value, and then you'll appreciate what we're bringing to the table in terms of what we're willing to give you. That is what they would like to say. My response to that, and J.R. Smith's response to that is, wait a minute here. We're the reigning defending NBA champions. I am a starting 2 guard in this league. I just watched Eric Gordon, who missed about 37 games last year in New Orleans, sign a 4-year, $53 million contract with the Houston Rockets. He's not an NBA champion. He's missed an average of 29 games per year. I've been reliable. I scored 10 straight points in the Game 7. I finished with 20 in that Game 7. I was a pivotal component towards the Cavaliers winning the championship. I was willing to guard Steph 1 minute, Clay another, Iguodala another, Barnes another, at times Draymond Green. And again, I have the king, LeBron James, validating my importance to this team. And so for me, I understand both sides, but I must confess that I favor J.R. Smith, and here's why. A lot of people are pointing the finger at David Griffin, the general manager. I happen to be a fan of David Griffin. I think that he's done a good job. When you consider some of the deals that he's made, Iman Shumpert, Timothy Mozgov, J.R. Smith, and others, what he's been able to acquire, some of the missing pieces. I don't think he should have paid Kevin Love $113 million, even though I think Kevin Love is worth dollars, just not $113 million. I think overall David Griffin has done a good job. My issue is with Dan Gilbert. See, Mark Stein, our very own Mark Stein, who does a fabulous job covering the NBA for us, wrote something in last month's ESPN.com talking about the J.R. Smith deal. He says even if they pay J.R., because he wants $15 to $17 million per, even if they pay J.R., the tax bill for Cleveland is projected to drop an estimated 35%. So the $54 million you paid in tax revenue, it's going to dip by about 35%. And that's not until this coming July, all right, after you sign JR. So considering all of that, the gaming rights to the casino that LeBron James being in Cleveland years ago helped Dan Gilbert get, some of the other ancillary benefits in the business world that extends far beyond, basketball, the money that Dan Gilbert has been able to generate. LeBron James is easily worth in excess of $400 million in terms of the money that he's put into Dan Gilbert and the Cleveland Cavaliers' pockets. And you tripping over this? Come on now.
Dan Gilbert is a bad and obnoxious owner. It's always been that way since that stupid letter he penned about LeBron when he left. The only thing Dan Gilbert's ever done good for the Cavs is he happened to own a team, the closest team to where LeBron James grew up. That's it. So LeBron wanted to go back there because it's home. That's the only, and then Dan Gilbert kissed the ring so he could make it. That's it. That's the only thing Dan Gilbert did as an owner. He's a terrible and obnoxious owner. Even the letter, he complained and cried like a baby when the Lakers pulled off the trade to Chris Paul, helped shoot that down. It was it was ridiculous. He complained that the Lakers saved money and got the best player in the deal. But wait a minute, if the Lakers save, you're mad because they're not paying more luxury tax to you, who takes that money and pockets it. I really don't like anything about Dan Gilbert, the owner. So if the team and the players' reps are saying two different things, I tend, if it's a Dan Gilbert team, to believe the players' reps and not believe the team. But let's talk about what's actually going on here with, like, why are they treating J.R. Smith this way? Here's my analysis, Stephen A. I think the Cavs are basically looking at LeBron and saying, hey, you can make everyone good. You make everyone good. So what do we need to pay J.R. Smith for? He won anything, then we brought him here, and all of a sudden he's our best perimeter defender and knocking down threes? Well, we could do that with the next guy. We don't have to give him 15 to 17 million. No, no, no. LeBron James brings the best out of everyone, but the material's got to be there first. Like the genius of LeBron, the reason, Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan had a baby and it was LeBron James is because you can see him do the one-on-one stuff, and it's as good as anyone in the league can do it, or better. But it's actually his ability to elevate everyone around him, a la Magic Johnson, that made him different than Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. So he can bring the best out of you, but it's got to be there. J.R. Smith has always been, if not an elite talent, the next thing to it. He could knock down a three. Well, he could jump through the gym. He could do all these things. And LeBron also made him an excellent defender. That doesn't mean he can do it with a scrub.
Let's point out some very, very important things before we finish off with this segment. J.R. Smith has turned his life around. Married, settled down, chilling out, ain't running the streets like he was in New York. He deserves a lot of credit for that. LeBron deserves a lot of credit for that. Point number one. Point number two. You have every right to say that about Dan Gilbert. I'm in no position to disagree with you, not just because of the letter that he penned, but because clearly they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. I mean, it's even got, listen, first of all, they've only had about a couple of dinners together. They barely even talk to one another, Dan Gilbert and LeBron. And if I were LeBron, I mean, I would have never looked at the man again, let alone talk to him again after that damn letter that he wrote. Some of LeBron's boys still can't stand Dan Gilbert because they still haven't let go of that letter. Number three, LeBron is frustrated, regardless of what the Cleveland Cavaliers are saying, because I know better in terms of that. Because LeBron feels like he got to carry the refrigerator, open the freezer, he's got to do everything, and they don't give a damn because they will run him into the ground. That's what his concern was when he left Cleveland the first time. Number four, to highlight and illuminate even further how opposite ends of the spectrum that they're on. Far be it for me to bring up our presidential candidates, Donald Trump and Hillary Rodham Clinton. LeBron James just endorsed her. Okay. That was after Dan Gilbert not only endorsed Trump, but had a fundraising part from what I'm told. From what I'm told, he had I don't know, I guess it's a fundraising party at his house for Trump. They are on opposite ends of the spectrum in every regard.
He had a fundraiser at his house for Trump. That's all you need to know about Dan Gilbert. Let me tell you something. Remember what he wrote originally about LeBron and what he was saying about LeBron when he left? Just to give you the crybaby, entitled nonsense, just so stupid, how he was talking about after everything he did for LeBron. Dan Gilbert, you're the owner in a salary cap league. You didn't do anything for LeBron. He was drafted to your team because he was going to be the #1 pick. You were lucky enough to get him. And then you gave him the max contract that every single owner in the league would have given him. In fact, it was capped at much, much lower than he was actually worth.
Than he deserves.
You've never done anything for LeBron James. That's a one-way relationship. LeBron does for Dan Gilbert.
By the way, last but not least, small market team, Cleveland Cavaliers. I believe, I got to double check this, but I believe they're the 6th most profitable franchise in the entire NBA. And this is in Cleveland. Yeah. Not New York, not L.A. It's 2 teams in L.A.
I'd be keeping the king
2 teams in New York. 2 teams in New York, 2 teams in L.A. There's also one in South Beach, okay? 6th most profitable team in the entire NBA. That is all about LeBron. He wants J.R. Smith. I'm not pointing fingers or blaming anybody. Get J.R. signed because LeBron says so. That's why you should do it, because that's who he needs.
I think we all agree with that one. The West Coast, the return of football in Los Angeles has been a good one so far. The Rams have certainly been one of the biggest surprises in this young season as they're currently sitting atop the NFC West, tied with the Seahawks at 3-1 after being shut out in Week 1 to the 49ers. Jeff Fisher's crew bounced back, beating the Seahawks, Bucks, and Cardinals. We welcome the coach, Herm Edwards. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Herm, in the
Talking
house.
about Stephen A's favorite team, the Rams.
Yes.
And I know how he feels about.
Yes, it's been no secret.
I'm not even going to say who's coaching that team.
Right, no secret. How you've been tough on Jeff Fisher. But with that being said, are you ready now to buy in on the Rams since their latest win streak?
No. Why would I be? What the hell have they
winning?
done? They've won 3 games in 4 weeks. Last time I checked, there's still 12 games to go. We're talking about a coach in Jeff Fisher that's in his 22nd season, and 15 times he's been out of the playoffs. This man's record is an atrocity. As far as I'm concerned, he's lucky to be the coach. This defense is elite. We all know what these boys bring to the table. They've got Ogletree. He's leading the team in tackles. You've got guys, you know, like a Quinn. He's got a couple of sacks on the year. They've only got 7 sacks on the year, but Quinn's got a sack. He's got 2 sacks. Hayes got a sack. Aaron Donald's only got a sack and a half or whatever. But the defense is definitely big time. There's no doubt about that. We look at them offensively, okay, with Case Keenum as your quarterback, what do you expect? You're ranked 30th in the league offensively. Dead last in yards accumulated, 30th against for the pass, 30th for the run. So clearly your defense is carrying this team. You just drafted a guy #1 overall, while Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott, even though Trevor Siemian was drafted the year before, they're playing. You see a guy in Jared Goff who wasn't even on the active roster for Week 1, and we haven't seen him throw a pass yet. It's still early. We get all of that. But what I'm trying to say to you is that when you have a number of years spanning decades of ineptitude, 4 games does not erase
I also
that.
don't believe in the Rams. I think that, look, I'll tell you why, Coach.
Wow.
First of all, they have 2 good wins. The good wins are against Arizona and Seattle. You know who they beat last year? Arizona and Seattle. I mean, divisional games, rivalries, that, you know, lesser teams can beat better teams. This happens. Yep. You know the Rams play Seattle tough, and they beat Arizona last year, too. Here's the thing about the Rams. Going into this season, I looked and thought, they have a good defense, good front 7. If you played them in daily fantasy last year, you know they'd rack up a lot of points for you, right? They have an offensive line. Their strategy is get rid of the ball quickly, but still the offensive line not so bad, and a great running back in Todd Gurley, potentially the best in the game in the not-so-distant future. They have a pretty good receiving core. They just were missing a lead wideout, in my opinion, Coach, and a veteran quarterback. Why they decided to trade up to draft a rookie quarterback who didn't look like a Cam Newton or an Andrew Luck in college, and not just use that to draft a wideout who we've seen, Amari Cooper, Sammy Watkins, Odell Beckham Jr., assume that lead wideout role right out of college, and then bring in a veteran quarterback like what Minnesota did with Bradford or RG3, although he got hurt. Kaepernick, different guys were available. I don't know. I thought that would have been a better strategy. But, Coach, I agree with Stephen A. here. Based on Jeff Fisher's recent history and just these 2 wins, the quality wins, I don't believe in the Rams.
Wow.
Without a quarterback.
Wow. That's really disappointing for me. Because all of a sudden, all 3 of us kind of agree.
You were gonna
I like the tease, Coach. I like look at Coach elevating his TV action.
You gotta sell the play action.
Well, look,
You gotta sell it.
That's selling the play action.
You guys made some good points because the Rams in the last 2 years in this division, they're 6-3. Jeff does a great job in the division. Last year and the last 2 years, they've been 4-7 outside the division. They beat the Browns, they beat the Lions, and they beat Tampa Bay twice. There lies the problem. Their offense is what I call slow-moving at best. They have a problem with big plays. Got a unique running back, but the offensive line is not very good, to speak nicely. Their defense is in the middle of the road. They got a good front. They got a great corner in Tremaine Johnson, very, very good player. But they're in a division right now where you see some teams struggling, Arizona being one. Seattle's going to continue to get better. I would hope Arizona will get out of this lull. But Arizona's got some issues, too, when you look at them. And I said it in the preseason. I didn't like the way they looked. It was just something that was bothering me. They got 12 games left. They'll probably get this thing going because they're talented enough in that. But the Rams are a team right now that when the season continues to play out, I think it'll catch up with them because they can't score points. They cannot score points. When they're forced to score points, they're going to get in trouble.
Well, let me ask you this.
Quarterback.
Let me ask you this question, Coach. When do we get to hold Jeff Fisher accountable for everything that you just diagrammed for us as it pertains to their woes as a franchise?
Well, you can hold him accountable. I mean, all coaches are held accountable. He has a unique talent in this sense that when they moved, the owner and the people in charge felt like he would be the best guy through the transition of the move.
I think he's got pictures on somebody.
I don't
understand it.
You're like, what is that guy know?
Look. I forgot.
3-1.
Listen, I'm not going to mention the
You're
guy. I'm
hilarious.
not going to mention the guy's name. But when I was in L.A., because my man Max invited me to that HBO party, I'm still indebted to that. That was a special party, boy. Here's the deal. I mean, Max invited me out there, and we was having a ball. You know, the point that I'm trying to make while I was there, there was an event for the Rams.
Yes.
And I met an employee, a couple of employees there for the Los Angeles Rams. Incredibly nice guy. One guy there needs to be the damn executive because I've never seen a man sell a franchise any better in my life.
That's what
he
they
knows
do.
who he
It's
is.
Los Angeles.
It was special. This dude is the greatest salesman I've ever seen in my life. It's unbelievable how he sold the Rams. But I say all of that to say I'll tell y'all the same thing I told him. You know, the Jeff Fisher might have, I mean, we got to check Kroenke's past or something. Something wrong. Jeff Fisher might have pictures on him or something. 15 years, you missed the playoffs in 21 seasons, and not only do you stay with the team to make the move from St. Louis to Los Angeles, but you get a contract extension too? I mean, I got to figure out what Jeff Fisher got something on that man. He's got something on that man. I'm just saying this was before the first
in
place.
a competitive division.
This was before the first place. This was before the first place. He's got something on him, Coach.
Well, he's
got something on him.
That's all I know. Good for you, Coach Fish.
What do you like to say? Only in America.
Mollywood, you got connections. Find out what Jeff Fisher got on that man. Ain't no reason for that man to still have that head coaching job.
I had you guys going, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. I was
that was
watching the
great.
running back. I thought you handed it off.
That's what the
Can't
coach
wait
can
for
do.
your perspective, though, on this next subject.
Oh, boy.
Cam, he got knocked out of Sunday's game against the Falcons. Is it time for him to change his playing style? What is going on? Herm will break it down for us next. The reigning NFL MVP Cam Newton was placed in concussion protocol after taking a hard hit to the head by Falcons linebacker Deion Jones as he reached the goal line for a two-point conversion in the Panthers' loss. Head coach Ron Rivera says he doesn't know if Cam will play against the Bucs on Monday Night Football. Herm, I don't know if this question's a little aggressive here, but does Cam need to change his style of play?
Well, he does in the sense that he has to understand when the journey's over if he wants to continue to play quarterback in this league for a long period of time. But this team is built to run the football. They are, third in the league right now running. Last year they were second. A lot of that has to do with Cam Newton. Remember, this guy carried the ball 132 times last year as a quarterback. Had almost 700 yards rushing. Now Stewart goes down. He's already carried the ball 29 times, more than any quarterback. He's been hit 45 times. Those are not good numbers. And what Cam has to realize now, he's so big and he's so powerful that you just anticipate when he breaks the pocket that when he gets to the back end of your defense that he's going to run you over. Well, he's got to learn how to, like we tell quarterbacks, slide. Protect yourself, Cam. You have to play the whole game. The only way this team can win football games is by you standing and playing the whole game. He can't leave the game. Now all of a sudden he got concussed. What happened to him against Atlanta? That same hit he got versus the Saints. He slowed down at the end zone, and a guy hit him. Same thing. He kind of slowed up. Now, he didn't see the guy. He didn't see the guy for Atlanta. He was kind of looking inside, and the guy was covering somebody, and he hit him. It was a clean hit. He hit him. He didn't go hit, but he hit him, and you could tell he was hurt. But he did the same thing. He's got to realize that guys aren't going to slow down. The job of a defensive player is to hit the quarterback. Hit him, rattle his teeth. That's what you want to do as a defensive player. And when the quarterback's running, you say, if we hit him legal, that's a good thing. Because we don't want this guy in the fourth quarter to have courage. He's a tough guy, but he's got to protect himself. The running game cannot go through Cam Newton. This is the problem. Stewart is out. The runner is Cam Newton right now.
Yeah, I like that actually, Coach. I mean, listen, I'm arguing this with Coach. I understand what that looks like. But I actually do like it when he's running the ball. I don't like it when he's standing up straight, walking into the end zone, he's going to get hurt. Sliding, yes. But I think the issue, at least to my eyes so far this season, the defensive front is not getting pressure on the other team. That's their defensive problem, it seems to me. And the offensive line is less than it was. For example, last year, 22% of the time last season on dropbacks, he got hit. 40% of the time, they were bringing an extra guy, right? This year, that goes up to 25% of the time he's getting hit, but they're only bringing an extra guy 33% of the time. So they're rushing fewer, they're hitting him a little bit more. The offensive line isn't quite as good. And meantime, it looks to me like he's holding the ball, looking for open receivers, where I would rather, if Cam Newton, if there's no one open, go. You know, run. You're going to pick up those yards.
You can run, but know when the journey's over.
Yes, slide, obviously.
Don't go running into somebody.
Yeah.
Slide.
And also, don't stand up straight walking into the end zone.
Here's the problem with both of y'all analysis. You're talking purely football. Let's take some other things into consideration. First of all, Coach, I disagree with you from the standpoint that I think Cam Newton, if you looked at him, he wasn't looking away. He looked right at the guy, saw him coming. What happened was he slowed up because you busy lollygagging because you're right there, which he tends to do a lot. You're right about that. I'm looking at a Cam Newton, and I'm seeing somebody that is not fully embracing the kind of ire that he provokes because of how great he is, how great he has been. And correct me if I'm wrong about this, because you would know this better than me. I don't think anybody's going to forget all that dabbing and celebration that team was doing last year. That kind of stuff. And you got to remember, never was it more flagrant than it was last year against Atlanta when their game was still going on and they literally were on the opposite sideline having trounced Atlanta, and they were literally taking pictures during the game.
Yeah, when woman wrote the letter.
Don't think for one second that cats forget something like that. And in football, where you have a license to assault. You have a license to assault. The quarterback, you got to start acting like you remember you are the target. Cats are not coming just to stop Cam. They want to hurt him. And what he has to do is respond like somebody whose life is in danger on every play, because they are trying to literally paralyze his spirit.
It doesn't help that they're dropping more guys in the coverage and that guys like Benjamin don't seem to be running very crisp routes and don't seem to be getting open.
Benjamin has been a disappointment.
Well, he's not a route runner.
He's been a disappointment.
He's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's a big size
but he's been
guy.
a disappointment.
And look, the problem, look, it all boils down to this. He's holding the ball, but the reason he's holding the ball, his guys are covered. This offense is a vertical offense. Not a lot of dinks and dunks, some screens, but it's built around the quarterback. It should be, but he's got to be a smarter quarterback when he leaves the pocket. And you're right, Stephen A. Look, when you do what he did last year, people don't forget. But Cam's a big boy. He gets that. He did this. He understands that. That ain't the problem. He has to be a smarter runner. Russell Wilson is a smart runner. Russell, and he's littler, but he's a smart runner. He understands, hey, okay, Robert Griffin was not a smart runner. Cam Newton's not being a smart runner right now.
Fair enough. Coach, always good to see you. Thank you.
It's good to be back.
Get a little tea. I'm hearing a little something in your throat. You're working.
I was just hollering with Stephen A. You know.
Okay.
Rams 3-1, Stephen A. in first place. Just saying.
Why would you say that?
Why didn't you invite me to that party? Why didn't you call me?
Were you in L.A.?
Well, I'm right the street.
I'm just saying, I didn't know that.
And you didn't invite me there. Shame on both.
That's on me, Coach. Next time.
Okay.
First Take is brought to you by the new grilled cheese stuffed crust pizza, only at Pizza Hut.
So when we brought this question up in the meeting, is Odell Beckham more trouble than he's worth, our Twitter poll, and I said nobody's really going to answer yes, right? 45% said Odell Beckham, that special talent, is more trouble than he's worth.
What is you, ignorant?
Reaction? Twitter getting it right?
That's ridiculous. He's worth the trouble because he's a superstar in this league. Period. If you are a superstar, if you are somebody who produces, you're worth the trouble.
Yeah, he's worth the trouble. The point is to harness his energy in a way where he's not trouble. I mean, that's the issue. Of course, he's worth it.
45%.
Why be trouble?
Oh, shocking.
May I make a correction? Can I change the subject for a quick second? somebody from the Cleveland Cavaliers reached out to me
to
inform me that they are not the 6th most profitable. They've actually, they've lost more money than most.
Well, in that case, sell the team.
That's what they
Gilbert,
said.
if it's such a hardship, sell the team.
They lost.
Gosh.
They were ranked 5th in terms of them losing the most.
I'm sure they've lost a ton of money on the Cavs. Dan Gilbert's
Okay, thank you. Point of order, point of order. We appreciate it.
Nonsense.
Odell Beckham tweeted a passage from the poem Invictus this morning. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms, but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid.
Let me say something about that.
I don't know what the hell he
Basically, Frank Sinatra's My Way, I did it my way. That's basically what he's saying here. I did it my way. I'm bloodied but unbowed.
My favorite song of all time.
But that's the wrong thing for Odell to be saying now. Odell, we're glad you have that fighting spirit. Never let anyone change your spirit. I know you won't. But harness your energy and focus it better. Now's not the time to say, I did it my way. No, now's the time to say, I learned something.
New level, new devil.
Hold on.
Let him see you sweat.
You may be right over the long haul. But for the immediate future, instead of pointing the finger at Odell Beckham Jr., why don't you point the finger at the rest of your New York Giants who've lost 2 in a row and have every excuse? Look,
I'm saying he's their best player.
I'm just saying, look in the camera and call them out too. What you bothering him for? Why don't you call the rest of them out?
Well, none of them are having temper tantrums on the sideline and risking ejection.
They're just losing, that's all.
23 yards yesterday,
What difference does it mean?
Odell,
that's on him.
Odell, I'm used to those sticky fingers where he catches everything. That wasn't yesterday.
Eli didn't have anything to do with that?
Eli had a lot to do with it.
All right.
Odell is a better player than Eli.